piece of advice for anyone pursuing sales would be, I guess, just lean on your experience. If you're pursuing sales, then you know, like I said, I don't think anyone comes as a child, grows up and thinks, I want to be a salesperson. You know, if you're in sales, I think that something probably hasn't gone to plan in your life. And I think you should just embrace that and just take your learnings and go full steam ahead and just know that it's all about that consistency and making sure that your activities on a daily basis align with your long-term goals. You know, I say to my kids often, always put your best foot forward, because you never know who the person you're talking to is going to be for you tomorrow.
Thanks for joining us for episode 10 of The Interesting People You Meet. This podcast is sponsored by Newground Financial. I am Nick Mombriquette. My co-host is Nathan Dover, and today our special guest is Shawn Slaunwhite. Shawn is the VRV Business Development and Commercial Account Manager at Daikin North America. Shawn loves the challenge of growing new and underperforming businesses and the satisfaction of achieving results. He lives for the process of building a business and exceeding expectations daily with overwhelming consistency. He has a proven track record of developing accounts and strategic partnerships. He believes in leading from the front with a servant leadership always in mind. He enjoys representing products and people he believes in and is determined to make a difference for his family, customers, coworkers, and his community. Shawn, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, we really appreciate you joining us here today, and it's fun to reconnect and talk business and how you approach your business and growing your market. I noticed on LinkedIn you do a whole bunch of videos, Shawn, or at least a few in the past, and I'm just curious, have you been on a podcast before, or how many videos do you make? Do you still do it?
Yeah, I had never been on a podcast, and I had never posted a video before. But I was, I guess when I first started, I was following Gary Vaynerchuk pretty closely, and he was, always pushing, push content. And, it kind of motivated me to get myself out there a bit, mainly because, I guess, working inside, I work for Daikin, we're a huge company, world's largest HVAC manufacturer. And we're based out of Houston, so we have a huge sales force, and we're all remote employees, mainly on the sales side. So what was happening was a lot of times we get together in Houston and we start to intermingle with the other organizations within Daikin, or the other groups like marketing and customer service groups. And the question would always come up like what the sales really do, or you'd catch someone making an off the cuff mark about the sales guys, or and then they would see that they're in the room with sales guys, and then we kind of backpedal a little bit. So I guess when I first started doing the videos, it was mainly to communicate directly with like senior leadership from Daikin in Houston. What actually happens on the ground? Like what is the sales force doing on the ground to make a difference for the company, and try to get my communication through to them that way.
Wow, that's really interesting. And did you find it worked?
Yeah, surprisingly, like the organic reach on LinkedIn is incredible. And you can't really go by the likes or the comments or anything like that, because a lot of times people will see stuff and they'll just browse by and continue on. And but it really comes to fruition when you're meeting with these people in person, and they say, "Oh yeah, I saw your LinkedIn video, and I really liked what you did there," or "Oh, you haven't been posting anything on LinkedIn lately. Is there something going on?" Or it's really interesting to get that reaction, especially from the key people that I'm targeting. Like we've got the VP of a sister company of ours called Daikin America. I was on a call with him the other week. He was like, "Oh, you haven't posted anything on LinkedIn in a little bit." And I was like, "You see that stuff?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I see it." So it's crazy. It's a fantastic tool for me for just to get the people within my huge organization to understand who I am and what I'm about.
That's pretty neat. I would say that's the first time I've heard someone describe the use of LinkedIn for that. And I think I don't disagree with the organic reach. That's crazy. And it's very interesting and something that Nathan and I are involved in heavily since we started working together. But it's really cool that you use it to share, to your senior management or whatnot, to let them know what you're up to. Pretty cool. Hey, Shawn, your camera, you might just want to move it over a tad bit. There you are. Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, that's really neat. So has those videos expanded at all to customers? Like, are you getting any engagement in that regard or no?
Yeah, for sure. Same thing. A lot of customers will see it. A lot of like former colleagues will see the stuff, and they'll talk to me when we run across each other, and they'll talk to me about it and what I'm doing. It's giving me some traction with that side of, I guess, the customer relationship stuff, but it's not really, wasn't the intended goal when I put it out. So it's really neat to have this like kind of knock-on effect of actually benefiting sales-wise from the videos that I put out for internal communication.
Yeah.
It's really cool. And I guess I really, really like the platform.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here. Geez, I had another question, but it slipped my mind. So you work, you work in sales. You've been with a couple of different companies in this, what seems like a similar capacity, but selling in commercial construction to some degree. Is that a fair statement?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Tell us a bit more about your professional journey. Like, how did you end up, studying science, if I remember correctly, in university to doing what you're doing now?
I always wanted to be a salesman, of course.
Okay.
No, to be honest, I think that I was always in love with sales.
Okay.
And the idea of what that meant for self-determination. I watched your podcast when you got interviewed, Nick, and some of the stuff that you were saying kind of really resonated with me. I remember being a kid and pulling the wagon. You were talking about pulling the wagon drinks and selling to people in their cars.
Right.
I was the same way as a kid. Like, I was always out trying to, doing a hustle, trying to make some money, and I would mowing lawns or shoveling driveways. It was always something that I was trying to do to kind of make some money, which I guess for me as a kid was a limited resource, right? Like, we were the same, Nick. We come from pretty humble background.
Yeah, for sure.
We weren't broke, but we had what we needed, but there wasn't a lot of excess. And, and so it was really appealing to me that I could, if I wanted something, enough, I could go out and work and get it. And that's something that I've kind of brought with me the whole way along in my journey.
Yeah.
And I think I kind of lost that going through school. And, you go through school and everyone kind of pushes, well, you need to do university, post-secondary education if you want to be successful in life and have a good paying job, good career. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. So when I got out of high school, I said, well, I'll do science at university and I'll come out and, I'll get a fancy scientist job and, I'll get paid big bucks and it'll be awesome. And then, so I did that. I did biology at Dow. I studied, advanced eukaryotic genetics and marine biodiversity and molecular cell biology. And I'm in my final year at university, and I'm looking in a career beacon at the time for like what are my career possibilities here, and like there was not high demand for scientists. I got a job as a fly pusher, and for anyone that doesn't know what a fly pusher is, basically I got to sit in a small little windowless office, and I bred fruit flies, selective breeding of fruit flies, specifically looking for a histamine reducing gene. And then I would go ahead and after these fruit flies that I've bred and grown, I would kill them, cut their eyes off, squish them up, and then collect all the red pigment for further testing. And I was getting paid like minimum wage to do this. And at the time I was also working at Superstore. And I was literally making double at Superstore working, grocery than I was as this fancy scientist. And I always thought I was going to be.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it was super depressing.
Yeah, well.
it was really depressing to think that I spent 5 years and did all this schooling to end up nowhere, basically, unless I did more schooling. And it put me back for a long time. Like, I spent a lot of years kind of down on myself and down on society. And, I worked at Superstore, and we paid the bills. We bought a house, and we renovated a house. And, there's always something going on. But I wasn't advancing career-wise like I had thought I would my whole education. And then I ran across, I was at a barbecue with my brother-in-law at the time, and his brother owned a sheet metal company. And he said, why don't you come work for me as a sheet metal apprentice? And, you can come through and you'll get paid to do your hours and advance and finally become a journeyman. And I was like, well, that sounds like a great plan. So I went and I started sheet metal, and that's where I got introduced to ventilation and heat pumps. And I did that for 2.5 years, and it was good, but it really wasn't where I saw myself going career-wise. So I started looking for options, and my customer now is emco, but they were hiring for this new position or this new division that they were starting up called emco HVAC. So they've been a plumbing and heating company for 100+ years. And then they were starting this new division, and they were looking for someone to come in and really start at the ground level as a counter sales position, and then, advancing with the company as that division grew. And so it was Paul Melanson was the recruiter that got me lined up with that from Lock Search Group. And I went in and met with Darcy McGuire, who was the manager of the emco location at the time. And I got hired, and it was great. Working at emco, I think, was a real highlight for me, because they also embraced that self-determination mentality. They always, like, if you read any of their hiring stuff, it's very much focused on entrepreneurial spirit and, taking ownership of your actions and doing what you can. And I took that and I ran with it there. And, I think I was pretty successful. I eventually went over, we started a new location strictly on HVAC stuff, HVAC equipment, selling the Daikin brand. And that company, or I guess that division, grew from, in the 2.5 years I was there, from $1.7 million to $4 million, $4.7 million in sales. Wow. And, but there's also kind of a trap within that, and emco recognizes it. But within that kind of do-it-yourself or take ownership mentality, and it's called getting stuck in the do. And that was me. I got stuck in the do. I was doing everything. I was literally making sales calls, entering sales orders, picking orders, shipping orders, dealing with customer service complaints, and it just got too much. And I got overwhelmed, and I started coming home, and I was, I was being mean to my kids, and I didn't like it. I wasn't in a good place, and I said I need a change. And so I got recruited for a position at Perry Formwork and Scaffolding. And I didn't really know at the time, but it was kind of like a rebuilding role. Their sales were minimal here. It was like $200,000 a year business. And when I got hired on, kind of the promise was like a $2 million account base, and that turned out not to be the case. Mm-hmm. So I quickly realized that I had to start looking for some options here, because my guarantees were running out. Right. And then the guy that used to be, I was the customer for him when I worked at emco. His name is Jimmy Karam. He's now the COO of ITC Technologies in Quebec. He was basically in my role when I was at emco. He got promoted to national sales manager, and he called me up. He said, "Listen, I got a vacancy. I'm looking for someone to take over the Atlantic region for Daikin. Are you interested?" And I was like, "Wow, yeah, hell yeah!" Yeah. Like, that's awesome. Yeah, of course. So I went through the interview process with them, and I got hired on, and I haven't looked back. It's been 7 years, and I haven't looked back. Wow. So it's been a different journey, I think. But I think anyone that ends up in sales will probably relate to the journey. Like, it's not there's not a lot of people that are kids and say, I want to do sales. You know what I mean? It kind of ends up being a path that you go down as a result of circumstances in your life. And I'm happy I went down the path.
That's cool. That's awesome. Just a couple of things out of that, if I may. You mentioned you were running out of guarantees in one position. So I think I know what you're at there, what you mean by that. But can you describe a bit more about how some of those, say, compensation structures work for some of those positions?
Yeah. So a lot of times with sales, a large portion of your compensation is based on commission. So you have normally a modest base salary, and then kind of in order to really be successful, you need to sell and gain this commission. So when I got hired on at Perry, there was kind of this base salary and some expenses and stuff, and then there was this guarantee that they put in place based on an assumed territory dollar value. And when reality set in that the territory was like 1/10 of what that guarantee was based on, it was like, well, I'm going to be out of luck here very shortly.
Right.
Yeah.
So as you moved on to the new position, you were stuck in the do at emco. How's it different from where you're at now? Do you just have a larger support team? You're not doing everything yourself, or you're focusing on the one thing, or like what does that look like?
Yeah, it's great. I've got fantastic partners in the market. emco, I still am fond of emco as a company. They're my biggest customer now. I also have another customer in Newfoundland, Mechanical Components Limited. But emco is my main customer in Atlantic Canada, and they're just phenomenal. They've got great distribution. When I started in the role, I was doing a lot. Like the VRV business for Daikin in Atlantic Canada was less than $300,000. So there literally wasn't enough revenue coming in to pay for myself. And at that time, I had another partner engaged that really wasn't. They were our partner, but they weren't engaged in trying to develop the market. So I was doing a lot of the work myself. So just to back up one quick second, we have two paths to market. So we have distributor path, which is basically design build, so a lot of contractor driven business, and then we have a plan and spec business, which is driven by consulting engineers, mechanical engineers who create their designs and then send them out to tender. So my partner on that side really wasn't engaged and didn't have the training or the knowledge to support that side of the business. So I spent a lot of time when I first started doing all the lunch and learns myself and going and meeting with all the customers. And it was great because I was able to establish a ton of relationships in the local market, which is, I think, key to continuing forward. But as things got busier and busier, I've had to rely heavily on emco to kind of backfill the stuff that I used to be doing. So they're coming up and doing a lot of the selections and customer support stuff that I was doing on my own at first.
Right. Awesome. Just to kind of add to that, I'm just curious what your day-to-day looks like with your current position at Daikin.
My day-to-day is greatly impacted by COVID. I don't get to do a lot of the fun stuff that I used to do, a lot of the selling stuff. Day-to-day for me now is there's a lot of supply chain chasing, equipment chasing for lead times and deliveries. So it's not as fun as it used to be, for sure. I look forward to the time when I can get back and do more site visits and customer meetings and stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's really what I like to do. We do specifically, I focus on doing a lot of in-person site visits. So what I'll do is, once I sell a project, I'll go ahead and do a walkthrough several times during the construction phase, just to make sure that everything is going to plan, that the installers on site feel like they're supported and know what they're doing. The product that I sell is a relatively new technology for North America. So on the global scale, it's been around for over 35 years, but newer to North America. So one of the key things to make it work is that the installs need to go well. Because if the install doesn't go well, then the job goes sideways. And I'll end up with a bad reputation for my product.
Right. And
how do you manage that like pre-install, Shawn? Like, and especially if you're dealing with engineers who like process and to see things, like how do you make that easier for them prior to, in addition to you being there and making them feel comfortable and helping if required, sales made, deals done. How do you make them feel comfortable knowing, okay, this is sort of that step-by-step process to make it work? Or do you have one like that?
I guess it's just being involved every step of the way from, I think, from conception to commissioning is kind of the terminology that I use. So, a lot of times because it's newer technology, maybe the owners or the mechanical contractor or the engineer even isn't super familiar with it. So I do a lot of hand holding the whole way. I rely on the engineers to do their thing and provide the information that I need, like sizing and calculations and stuff like that. And then I'll go ahead and help them with the selection process and make sure that the equipment that we're putting out for a job lines up exactly with what they've kind of, sold to the client. And then, just managing everything through construction and then commissioning and make sure that, and even continuing on, like there's been jobs that, I still go to job site 2 or 3 years after commissioning if there's something that comes up, just to, show that, I guess, as the representative of Daikin in the market, we're committed to not only our success, but their long-term success as well. So it's providing accountability. And that's really gone a long way in Atlantic Canada with all the stakeholders here that, there's accountability when they choose Daikin piece of equipment, they know that they're going to have support.
Well, Shawn, you mentioned COVID already, and you said that it's kind of affecting the way you work. How have you adapted to this? Are you starting to do any virtual stuff, or has it made it a lot tougher for you? Or because I know some people end up saying it actually made it a little bit easier for them, but I don't know about your business. You like to be hands-on, belly to belly. So tell me a bit about how it affected you.
Yeah, it definitely has set me more virtual. I do a lot of like Teams meetings. Luckily things are coming back now. So that's exciting that we're going to get to go and do some things in person now. But a lot of virtual stuff and virtual trainings. I kind of made a post on LinkedIn about this not long ago. I find that it's almost like email overload lately with everyone working remotely and no one being in the office anywhere. The amount of emails flying back and forth to troubleshoot stuff and to deal with issues is just crazy. So what I'm finding is that I spend a lot more time on the telephone than I did previously. And just, talking through things, and it's just so much more efficient than email. Email, you could be 30 emails and not have a resolution. And, that could have been resolved in a 5-minute phone conversation. So I think that for me, at least, COVID has made me more efficient from an operations perspective and kind of using the telephone.
Right.
That's pretty awesome. I have a sort of a rule in the back of my head that's like says if it can be done over the phone, then pick it up and call the person.
Yeah.
And I've been reminded of that through COVID as well. It's just, there's many ways to communicate, but certainly if we need things in writing, we'll do that. But otherwise we can get it done pretty quick in a phone call. And I find it's like surprising to people now when you call them, they're like, hello. Like it's, it seems, I don't know if people are used to it anymore, but.
So the good thing about a phone call is that it's really hard. Like, don't get me wrong. Like calling someone is hard, especially if there's any conflict, right? You don't want to call that person and you're thinking, well, what's going to happen? And, but it's just it seems like people love to write nasty emails and combative emails and, witty things that come through email.
Right.
But no one loves having conflict, verbally or face to face. So, if you have an issue with someone and you call them up, chances are, like, worst thing they're going to do is tell you to send them an email on it, right?
Right.
That's absolute worst. they're not going to insult you or name call you, and it's going to be a lot better than the email you would have received. I guarantee that.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll send you the voicemail, and then at least you can leave a voicemail with tone.
Right.
The tonality is what's missing when we
Absolutely
communicate by text only.
Yes.
And tonality means so much.
Yeah. That's what I've really enjoyed about using Teams and Zoom and stuff like that. Is the phone was great, and I still continue to use it to hear the tone. But now when I can see you, it's just you can read people better and understand how to deliver your message. But yeah, the phone is key for sure. Nathan's learning that right now, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm being reminded of it. So, COVID has impacted industry. It's impacted housing and construction, definitely on the, in the real estate side. What's the current state of your industry here in Atlantic, Canada?
Yeah, it's booming.
Okay.
It's booming. A lot of my business is driven by the multi-unit res developments.
Okay.
We've got a pretty good foothold in that industry now, and the developers can't build fast enough. The population growth has gone so crazy here that they literally cannot build the buildings fast enough to get people in.
Right.
So that's really, COVID's made things harder for me in terms of operation side, but in terms of business, like it's crazy. It's booming. It's awesome. It's great.
Wow.
Our part of it has to do with our climate here too. The product that I sell is a heat pump, and it's drawing energy from the outside air and pushing it into the building as heat, typically in the wintertime, and then AC in the summertime. And our climate region here in Atlantic Canada is really ideal for heat pumps. And then if you also look at kind of the market, if you look at the market in terms of what's available for alternate sources of heat for these buildings, we don't have widespread natural gas distribution like they do in the West. Straight electric is very expensive to use. So there really isn't a lot of options, and people are trying to get away from fuel oil. So a heat pump is really good for our climate, and it's really helped.
That's interesting. So here's a personal question. Do you leave your heat pump on all year round in your house? I know it's not a commercial question, or do you turn it off at some point, or do you know the answer?
You can leave it run all year.
Okay.
You can leave it run all year.
Yeah.
That's the basic answer.
Okay.
Most heat pumps are working at an efficiency of about 3 times better than like a straight electric source.
Oh, wow.
So what it means is that when you go away to work for the day, you're not looking at massive setbacks in your indoor ambient temperature like you would with an oil furnace or a fireplace or something like that.
Right.
It's about kind of like setting and forgetting. And, you can do a little bit of setback, but for most times heat pumps, you're just better off just letting them run. And the technology that I sell is inverter based.
Okay.
So what it means is basically heat pumps work by using a compressor and refrigeration cycle. Old style heat pumps would be 1 stage or 2 stage, which means that they're on or off, and kind of when they're on, they're drawing the full amount of electricity. When they're off, they're off. But with inverter heat pumps, it works more like a gas pedal in a car. So what happens is, as the demand goes down in the space, your compressor slows down and reduces the electrical consumption. And then there's kind of like a sweet spot, same as your car. If you buy a car that's, whatever the gas mileage rating on your car is taken at its sweet spot, right? And that's kind of how inverter compressors work, is you try to keep them in that sweet spot of maintaining the space temperature rather than coming on and off.
That's interesting. Cool. When we chatted a few months ago, Shawn, you had mentioned, you were doing very well in your position, and you've alluded to that already so far in this conversation, and you've certainly pointed out a few pieces that set you apart. But what is it that really has led to your success in this market with this company? What makes you different?
I think that I think that I have an unhealthy level of self-confidence
Okay.
mixed with a good amount of self-awareness.
Fair enough. I like it.
So, like self-confidence, not meaning that, I think I'm the best at anything. As a matter of fact, I think I'm not the best at everything. But I think I can do just about anything. But I recognize also in saying that, there's going to be challenges for me. So to look at it, unhealthy level of self-confidence means that I do a lot more than I probably should. Understanding that I'm not the best at everything, that it's going to take work, and then I kind of have the grit to get through and push through to eventually succeed. I've got asked a few times by different people, like what's the secret to success, and I can't speak to everything, but I know in Atlantic Canada, for me, the secret has been just being present, doing what you say you're going to do, and being consistent. So, it's funny to see, I get a lot of recruiters reaching out and asking, if I'm interested in different roles, and they said they're looking to hire a rock star. That's always a red flag to me, because if someone says to me that they're looking to hire a rock star, it typically, in my mind anyway, it translates to there's a business that's not doing well, and they're looking for someone to come in and save it right away. And do something flashy to make that happen. And that's just not reality. I think, you got to focus on the long term and to be a long-term business and to be successful over the long term, it takes time and commitment and consistency. And you just have to make sure that your activities on a daily basis align with your long-term goal.
Wow, that's pretty awesome.
Shawn, it seems like you've obviously had some personal success, and you've kind of started from a wannabe scientist to a superstore, a career in superstore, into where you're at now. But who do you go for business advice? Is there anyone in your life that you can think of off the top of your head, or maybe it's not somebody that you personally talk to? Maybe it's someone on YouTube, or maybe even a book that you've read.
Yeah, I rely heavily on my connections. So specifically, like my manager now is fantastic. His name is Alain Nazar, and he's got a ton of experience, and he's just a valuable resource for me. Anytime that I'm running up against something that I'm not sure what to do with, I can reach out to him, and he can give me some honest feedback and guidance. But there's been guys like the whole way along in my career path that have guided me. I started working when I was 14, and I worked for my uncle, Kirk Arsenal, and he owns Advanced Screen Printing. And I think that, Kirk has been a role model for me and kind of, sent me on the path of showing me what hard work does for you and how to be successful. But just along the way, there's just been so many fantastic people that have helped me. I take a lot of inspiration from the people that I work with. Working at Perry and working at Daikin has exposed me to a lot of international connections. So I know, like, I've worked with a lot of people from places all over the world, a lot of immigrants, and I just find it so fascinating that those people can just kind of have the courage to get up and move to a new country and basically start with nothing. And it's just so inspiring to me to hear their stories. So I guess a ton of people. I used to, like I mentioned earlier, Gary Vaynerchuk. I followed him pretty closely for a long time, and I still love hustle culture myself. Like I still believe in that. Like I work at Daikin, but I've got a real estate investment going on the side, and there's always something else that I'm working on, and I love that. And I think that if you go to any CEO of any big company or any successful person, and you ask them how they got there, I think they're just going to tell you hard work. And so I used to love Gary's old stuff where he would talk about hustle culture and stuff. I think he's getting a little bit soft now, to push back on a work-life balance. So I don't know if I necessarily agree with all that, but
I think his PR team toned him down or something like that.
I think so. I don't know. Yeah.
There's a healthy balance, but I mean, yeah, I mean, I'd say even for myself, I didn't end up where I am today by taking it easy. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
why don't you give us a piece of advice, or maybe a piece of advice for somebody pursuing a career in sales? Can you think of anything that helped you, motivated you?
My piece of advice for anyone pursuing sales would be, I guess, just lean on your experience. If you're pursuing sales, then you know, like I said, I don't think anyone comes as a child, grows up and thinks, I want to be a salesperson. You know, if you're in sales, I think that something probably hasn't gone to plan in your life. And I think you should just embrace that and just take your learnings and go full steam ahead and just know that it's all about that consistency and making sure that your activities on a daily basis align with your long-term goals. You know, I say to my kids often, always put your best foot forward, because you never know who the person you're talking to is going to be for you tomorrow. You know, like I said, I got hired by the guy that he was formerly my account manager. He hired me on to replace him, basically. But I've seen that all through my career, is that, you know, putting your best foot forward in a position is always your best way to kind of move to the next level. So even if you hate your job, that's what I said to my kids. Like, even if you hate your job, you're a cashier, you absolutely hate your job. You know, always have a smile on your face. Always do your best, because that person standing at your register might be your boss tomorrow. They might end up being your in-law down the line. You know what I mean? So you're always trying to be your genuine self, but be your best genuine self.
Very sound advice. Love that. You know, you brought up your kids, and between the two of us, we could probably have a hockey game full of 20 with a bunch of kids. So I'm just curious. You mentioned earlier, you know, self-determination type attitude, and you just alluded to some of the things you teach your kids, but I'm just curious, how do you show or teach them about that self-determination attitude?
A lot of coaching.
Yeah.
A lot of coaching.
Okay.
And trying to get them to recognize the incredible position of privilege that we're in, to be living in Canada, where they can basically do whatever they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something that maybe I missed through education, is that, you know, the important part about self-determination is that you have the ability to determine, you can be whatever you want to be, basically. But it's up to you to decide what that's going to be. And you need to put in the work to do it. Like, I can't go out and say, okay, well, I want to be a successful person, and just expect that to be laid upon me, right? It's going to take work. It's going to take work, hard work. It's not going to be easy. But if it's what you truly want, I think that it's achievable. And, you know, I just think so many youth today are missing that point, that, you know, they live in a life of luxury. We all live in a life of luxury, but no one kind of understands what that means.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that you look at what's happening in other places in the world, and how much more worse off your situation can be. And that's what I think that I try to drive home with my kids, is that we are so lucky to be where we are in the world. And basically, the world is their oyster. They can do whatever they want to do, but they have to decide that they're going to do it. And I'm okay with they can do whatever they want to do. Like, I'm okay if they don't become a doctor or a lawyer, or, you know, if they wanted to be a stay-at-home parent, whatever they want to do, I'm okay with it, as long as it's what they want to do and they're doing their best.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. That's great. Yeah, it you know, I think of thinking about our place of privilege, and, you know, I don't know about, I think it was Zig Ziglar who used to say, you get poor little old me syndrome when you're in sales sometime. And, you know, those times when maybe it's hard to pick up the phone to do a cold call or whatever it might be, and you just kind of sit there and go, no one's going to kill me over this, or, you know, whatever, I can do this. And what's the worst case that can happen? they defer to an email or they hang up on you, right? So big deal.
That's
You
right.
got nothing to lose. So it
No.
is very neat to look at things with that lens. That's awesome. Shawn, I'm going to take a guess that you probably read a book once in a while. Do you?
I do not read books.
Okay. Wow. That's awesome. Okay.
It's funny because I knew that question was coming, and I was kind of playing in my mind, like, how can I position this so I don't look like I'm a dummy? Like,
Just be serious.
I just don't have, I don't have a lot of time. And,
That's interesting.
And I read short form, like I read a lot of articles in magazines, online and stuff. I do listen to a few podcasts, but typically if I'm listening to a podcast, it's one that I can put into like 2 times speed. So I can get the content out of it, right? It's just I'm just busy. I got 5 kids, and I've got a full-time job, and I've got 2 or 3 other things going on the side at all times. So it's not a lot of leisure time.
Fair enough.
Which one's your favorite?
Don't read books.
Which one's your favorite podcast? I know you said you listened to at least the first episode of ours, which is cool, but obviously you have some other ones that are your favorites. Let's hear them.
Yeah, so I actually listened to more than your first episode. I listened to a couple different ones. And YouTube is nice because it lets me do that 2 times trick.
Nice.
I like listening to Under the Influence. I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
Okay.
But it talks about like marketing. It has a lot of information on marketing and kind of like the history of marketing and different things that have happened. I just recently started listening with all the global politics stuff that's going on and all the misinformation that's in the world right now. A little bit more serious, I've started listening to the Monk debates, which is really interesting because they put together people from opposing sides of the conversation, and they have an honest debate about things, and it's refreshing, I guess, to hear both sides of a story and try to get my head around what the things that I'm seeing, like what is reality and what is fiction and what is exaggeration. So I find that's been a kind of a key podcast for me as of late to try to navigate the geopolitical mess that we're in.
I guess you can kind of formulate your own opinion a bit better when you hear it from both sides, as opposed to just being fed one side, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's what it's all about, is that it's unbiased and they just kind of talk it out.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to check that one out for sure, because all the things you just described is what's going on in my mind. You don't know where to look or listen or what, forming your own opinion on it. Well, this has been really awesome. And before we jump off, Shawn, I just want to ask one more question. And then the question is, what question do you wish people would ask you more often?
That's a tough one. That is a tough question. I think I wish that people would ask me what's next.
Okay.
What's next with regards to everything? What's next in your life? What's next at Daikin? What's next with everything? I think that, I think that's an important question to ask, because sometimes we can get drugged down with the current situation, but looking towards the future and what's happening next and planning for that, I think is exciting and appealing.
We got a few more minutes if you want to dive into that question for us.
I was just going to say, is it fair to ask you what's next, Shawn?
I don't know what's next. I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I've been at Daikin for 7 years. It's a great company to work for. I'm established. My job is not easy, but I'm in a routine, and I kind of, I guess, have hit my stride, you would say.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if we, reflecting back on my LinkedIn profile and kind of my introduction there, it's really exciting for me to grow new businesses, things that are underperforming, or, something that's brand new, bringing something brand new to the market.
Right.
I'm kind of past that stage, I guess, now with Daikin. So I still love what I do on a daily basis. I make a good living, don't get me wrong. But I have plans,
Yeah.
things that are happening.
Yeah.
I think that, and they said, like, this might sound crazy, but like, I want to open a laundromat
Okay.
in Elmsdale.
Okay. Cool.
Just because I think it's a good investment, and
Yeah.
there's not one here.
Right.
I would love to open an indoor karting facility, like go-karting facility.
Cool.
So, if you have some investors watching this podcast that are interested in getting in on something like that, reach out.
Yeah.
I
Nice.
also, I think of a real estate and what I'd like to do there. I think about my kids, what's next for them. So I've got a couple small business things going for them that I plan on them taking over as they're going through their post-secondary education, whatever it may be.
Cool.
Some way for them to earn income and kind of pay their way. Because I have kids and because of the mess that we're in politically, like I think politics, like maybe that's something that might be appealing.
Mhm.
But there's just so many what next options. It's exciting.
That is exciting. Well, good for you, man. And here we hopefully, I don't know if this is the first that's been said, but we got it recorded now. So we better see a go-kart opportunity out there in Elmsdale, and we can get our laundry done while we're in there, which is super cool.
One-stop shop.
$100. I laugh, but I laugh because I think it's cool.
I also have a small moving box company. So there was once there used to be I think it still exists. Frog Boxes was the name of the company, and they would rent like reusable totes.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got kind of like the start. I wouldn't say it's a business because we haven't really. Most of our customers to date have been charity or like not necessarily charity, but we just let people use the boxes.
Right.
But we've got like reusable totes set up so that if you're moving and you don't want to use cardboard boxes.
Cool.
You can get these totes from us and rent them on a weekly basis and do all your moving in these reusable totes. So
that's convenient.
Environmentally friendly. And,
I like that. No looking for banana boxes at the grocery store, right, or whatever. Yeah.
Don't waste your time or gas. Just call us up and we can deliver it. It all comes on a cart and we deliver it and you go ahead and do your move and we pick it up when you're done.
That's really cool. Politics. So that's an interesting one too. My goodness.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots.
Yeah.
There's lots. I just hope I don't run out of time. That's my biggest fear. I think, we talk about self-determination and being able to go out there and do whatever you want to do. The only limiting factor is time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what we all need to check a lot.
I agree.
Our work life and our personal life, there's only so much time.
Where do you write all this stuff down, Shawn? Or you're just a sponge anyway? I know that personally. So do you jot it down, or you just got it all up there in the brain?
No, I've never been, like I said, I don't read a lot of books and I don't take a lot of notes, and maybe that's a fault, I guess. But even through university, it's just I never really took notes. It's just been I kind of just engage, what I mean, and I find that that's works for me the best.
Right.
Is if I can engage with someone and really listen to them and understand, I retain it better than if I try to focus on taking notes down, or if I write goals down somewhere, usually gets lost in the files. So I kind of just check myself mentally. I don't get a lot of sleep because I think about a lot. But
Nathan, you're smirking as he's talking about his photographic memory. Is that because you have one too, or
no? Definitely not.
Come on, yes you do.
No, I wish.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, listen, Shawn, this has been so cool. I really appreciate you taking time to jump on. I know you're busy and you got a bunch of other stuff to do, but we appreciate you carving out some time to share your insights and thoughts and story with us. It's been awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Listen, I really appreciate you guys for having me. I hope I gave you some good content. I don't know that I'm all that interesting, to be honest. But it was funny because I was telling my wife last night that I was doing this interview, and she was mad at me because I didn't tell her in advance.
She wanted to help prep you, or what?
I'm just, I guess, I'm a poor communicator in like telling people what I'm doing that doesn't impact them directly.
Okay.
I think that's kind of because that's my expectation is that, I got enough going on that I don't really need a lot of extra information.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, the point of that point was she asked me why you guys are doing this. Like, why is this podcast happening? What's your goal? And I kind of made some assumptions, and I told her. But before I say that, I'm just interested to hear from you guys. Like, what's the goal of the podcast?
Yeah, well, I'll start. Nathan, you can finish off if I forget something or leave your side. But I've always wanted. I've listened to a ton of podcasts. I thought it was really a neat way to communicate. And what I found is in our industry, there's a few people that have some podcasts, and it's mostly about them or their skill and expertise, which I think is a bit self-serving, but perhaps it helps some. I'm just literally interested in people, and and it's interesting you say I don't think I'm that interesting. Almost every guest so far has said that, and I beg to differ because it's fun to sit down and chat and find out stories, and it's what we found is it's helped us. We've even had some guests come back and say, man, I've learned a few things by putting myself out there or having to prep for that. And it's interesting. Even the other day I had a random Instagram message from someone who listened to our podcast and was like, man, I got so fired up when I heard that one with so-and-so. I'm thinking about doing this now. And I was like, I didn't even think that would happen. I didn't even know anyone was listening. So
Yeah.
The purpose, honestly, is to share the stories of those people who we know and have had an impact in our life, and wherever it goes from there, we'll see. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nick pretty much hit it head on, and just it's cool to talk to people and gets us out of our comfort zone a little bit too. Just to be on video and talking live, I guess. Yeah, it's a cool experience for sure.
If I like to do this a lot. Like, I like to look at things and think about, deeper about why people do things. So you can edit this out later. You don't have to put this in there. But
Okay.
My comment back to her was, I thought that this podcast was a brilliant way for you guys to get your name out there and kind of tap into all of the social networks that everyone you're interviewing have.
Right.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
And, because for sure I'll do something on LinkedIn about this. And then, all the people that I'm connected to will see this. And,
right.
My hope going into this, I guess, and my goal was to give you some good content, but also that I can kind of drive some business your way on the other side, is what I hope.
No, we appreciate that. That's really awesome. And it has, fortunately, so far worked that way. Again, I don't think it was our 100% intention to have it turn out that way, but it is, and it's great. And we're grateful for the guests who are, willing to share our efforts in getting their name out there, et cetera. So, yeah.
And good on you guys, because it's not easy to record yourself and then watch the playback and do the edits and then go ahead and hit post. It's like, man, what did I just do? I guess it's so amazing to me. Like, don't ever measure yourself by the amount of likes or anything like that, because it's just the reach that you're going to get is just going to be incredible. So.
Thanks, Shawn. That's awesome, man. We really appreciate it. Thank you for your time and insight. And again, no joke, it was really fun to sit down and learn more about what you're up to.
Okay, guys.
Okay,
Thank you.
Keep in touch. See ya.